MMA has become a way of life thanks to the UFC. It has been the fastest growing sport in the past decade.
Today, the UFC is a household name and the world's leading promoter of mixed martial arts. Much has changed for the UFC over the years, but there is one aspect of the organisation that has remained almost completely unchanged since its very inception, and that is the UFC's iconic Octagon. So where did the Octagon originate from, and why does the UFC utilise it instead of a traditional boxing ring? Well, let's find out. The idea for the Ultimate Fighting Championship came from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Grandmaster Rorion Gracie of the Gracie martial arts family. The Gracie family were pioneers in the development and popularisation of the martial art known as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and around the 1920s, the family began issuing the Gracie Challenge. This challenge was essentially an open invitation to martial artists of all other fighting styles and backgrounds to come and compete against members of the Gracie clan. This was done so that the Gracies could demonstrate that their style of jiu-jitsu was superior to all other types of martial arts, and the Gracie Challenge subsequently led to many unique and differing stylistic matchups throughout the intervening decades. Rorion Gracie eventually emigrated from Brazil to the United States in 1978 and began teaching Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in California in order to help spread the martial art internationally. By 1993, Rorion had a thriving jiu-jitsu school and business, but wanted to keep expanding Gracie's jiu-jitsu even further and looked at the old Gracie Challenge concept to help him do exactly that. Rorion would eventually team with ad agent and business executive Art Davies in order to put together a large-scale martial arts event. This event would pit different fighting styles against each other to determine which was superior, and would also serve as the huge promotional platform that Rorion felt Gracie Jiu-Jitsu deserved to introduce it to the world. And this interdiscipline or mixed martial arts competition would eventually be dubbed the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Now that the concept of the UFC had been worked out, they then needed to solve the problem of how to have multiple martial artists of varying fighting styles competing against each other in a safe and neutral arena. Rorion immediately dismissed the idea of a ring, as during the Gracie Challenge matches, he had seen how dangerous and disadvantageous rings could be, especially to grapplers, as opponents could simply crawl out of the ring to escape submissions, while strikers could also knock opponents through the ropes and onto the floor, which again was very dangerous. Rorion also wanted a new type of structure to differentiate the UFC from boxing and to also make a big statement on TV. So, the boxing ring, a staple in combat sports since its creation in 1836, was out. Many people have tried to claim credit for the Octagon's inception over the years, so I'll do my best to try and list each contributor to its creation. Since I've already mentioned Rorion's contribution, I'll move on to another contributor to the conception of the Octagon. A contributor who also happened to be one of Rorion's jiu-jitsu students, and that student was the Academy Award nominated John Milius, writer of Apocalypse Now and Conan the Barbarian.
So when you have John Milius as a renowned writer, director, producer in Hollywood, and you say, hey, John Milius is part of the team, everybody take that very seriously. It changes things a little bit.
Milius came on board the project as a creative director, and his name gave the UFC much more credibility from the outset. Milius also happened to be a huge pro wrestling fan and loved its theatrics, so he began suggesting many outlandish and over-the-top ideas for the structure to be used at the event, including using a moat filled with alligators to electrified fencing, before eventually suggesting that they should make the arena into the shape of an octagon to make it look more imposing and Roman. Another apparent source of the Octagon's creation came from art director Jason Cuson, who had to come up with a new original structure to satisfy the UFC's television and production needs. Cuson knew nothing of martial arts, but had previously seen the Chuck Norris martial arts movie The Octagon, and said the movie's martial arts subject matter and name did inspire and inform his subsequent octagonal cage designs. Production designer Greg Harrison, who also claims credit for the Octagon's conception, disputes Cuson's account and swears that he originally came up with the Octagon idea. Harrison states that he designed the Octagon to be safe for mixed discipline fighting, but also to be television and audience friendly. Finally, fight promoter Greg Pexels also claims credit for the Octagon concept. Pexels had previously hosted a hybrid martial arts and pro wrestling event months before UFC 1, in which he had his fighters competing inside an octagonal cage, specifically for the safety of the fighters mixing styles. The Octagon has many advantages over other types of fighting arenas. For instance, it is easier to build than a circular cage, it is extremely television and spectator friendly, its unique shape and angles don't provide any advantage to any particular martial art or fighting style, unlike a boxing ring, which allows a boxer or kickboxer to trap an opponent in its corners. The Octagon is also bigger than a boxing ring at 9.1 meters across, allowing fighters to move more elusively, and for strikers to create distance from grapplers looking for a takedown or a clinch. And finally, the Octagon's flexible fencing also prevents fighters from falling out of the arena, unlike in a boxing ring where fighters can be knocked through or become tangled in the ring ropes. The effectiveness of the Octagon and its nature as an iconic mixed martial arts symbol have led the UFC to trademark the term and the structure itself, and it has become synonymous with mixed martial arts and the UFC as a result. It truly was a revolutionary idea from the very beginning, and the fact that the Octagon has lasted for nearly 30 years without having to change is a testament to its ingenuity and all of its creators.